Edouard Laboulaye was a 19th century French jurist and an abolitionist. He was French. His idea is what started what we now call the Statue of Liberty. It was his idea that a gift should be given to these Americas to celebrate the end of chattel slavery and the end of our Civil War. He wanted to give it to America as a gift to celebrate humanity and also to remember the alliance and friendship between France and America. In an early draft of that statue, which was ultimately designed by Frédéric Auguste Berthoud, Lady Liberty held not a torch in her hand, but broken shackles. Shackles that in subsequent design phases were moved from her hands down to her feet. They lay at the bottom of the sculpture these days. They're difficult to see from sea or from land, but you can see them from up top. It's as if she's stomping on them, which I rather like, this imagery, though we don't see it as much as we might want. And it conjures great lyrics about stomping on vineyards where the grapes of wrath are stored. And as the shackles moved to her feet, the now famous torch was born. Many of you know that France gave this great gift to America, but like so many well-intended gifts, it arrived and Americans didn't know what to do with it at all. We didn't know where to put it. We hadn't asked for it. We weren't sure we liked it. Did it go with our decor? And having just come out of a war, we had neither the money nor the bandwidth to deal with a pesky, rather cumbersome gift from France. So Lady Liberty, like many a wedding gift, sat in her box for a few years, and we remembered to pull it out or take a picture of it whenever France came to visit. And as we and all the rest of the Americans, particularly the northern ones I should add, were trying to raise money to build the pedestal on which to put her, our forebears did what many of us still do. We commissioned artists to help inspire the wealthy to part with their money. We call this philanthropy. Sure, it works. And one such artist at this time was a young woman, a social activist, funny that tie, fighting for the rights of refugees. Emma Lazarus was her name. Some of you may know her. She was an American woman of Jewish descent whose family were among the first Sephardic Jews to immigrate to America many generations before herself. And she's the sort of artist that many of us would recognize today, that are part of this congregation and our communities, that inspire us all to part with our money and help make the world a better place. She was feisty. She was a prophet. She had no time for idiots, and she had no time for the world becoming better tomorrow. It needed to be better today. And Emma wrote a poem that was commissioned to help build the pedestal on which Lady Liberty now stands, that contains the famous lines, "Give me your tired and your poor, your huddled masses." Many school children know this and know that these words are inscribed on the base of the statue. Emma Lazarus wrote this poem in 1883, 3 years before the dedication of the statue in 1886, and 1 year before her very untimely death in 1887. The poem and its famous lines inscribed in bronze sat, much like the statue, in a box for a number of years. And it wasn't until 1903, after the efforts of Georgina Schuyler, descendant of those famous Hamilton sisters, a philanthropist, a historian, she unearthed the poem from another dusty box, found it, and raised the money to affix it to her sister Emma Lazarus' statue. A statue that nobody asked for. The idea of a French idealist who thought slavery was just wrong. A statue, the creation of a French sculptor. A gift to a tired, war-torn, and broke country. Raised on a pedestal raised by Jewish artists and activists in celebration of what was then thought to be the end of racially based oppression in America. In 1883, we thought that. I don't know that we think that this week. A statue with a woman's poem that was nearly forgotten until another woman found it, nearly 20 years later, and raised the money to put it on a statue. A poem with lines that inspire us all and that stir our collective American imagination. On this 4th of July weekend, when attendance across the country in churches is rather like the slogan of the Marine Corps, "You are the few and the proud," I would like to read that poem to you. This poem is called The New Colossus, and good church people that you are, you may recognize that city as the one to which Paul wrote a couple letters as well, many, many years previously. The poem is a sonnet. I wish Jocelyn was here, she could tell us more. And I want us to hear it in its entirety. Our third lesson this morning comes to us from The New Colossus, a poem by Emma Lazarus, written in 1883. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. "Keep ancient lands, you storied pomp," cries she. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Pop quiz. Category is current events. Show of hands. How many here know what the Titan is? The Titan. Okay? You've got the, okay, good. I know who I'm picking for my next bar trivia night. Second question. How many here know what the Adriana is? The Adriana. 1, 2, 3. I could have given a better category. I could have said pop quiz maritime current events. Any more hints? Maybe another hand or two? Could have said maritime disasters. Catching on. The Adriana was a vessel carrying 750 refugees across the Mediterranean Sea that lost communication with land and sank on June 14th, drowning 600 souls that were yearning to breathe free. It was operated by smugglers who charged upwards of $4,000 US to Pakistanis and to Egyptians, including women and children, hoping for a new life in Southern Europe. The ship's captain and their crew, smugglers is their name, human traffickers, stood to make over $3 million in US money if they delivered these 750 souls to the shores of lands that didn't ask for them and didn't want them. Trouble is, they'd only be paid upon completion of the voyage. By some accounts, and kind of by common sense, the promise of this payout upon completion is part of why the vessel did not get rescued and why we lost so many souls. The captain wasn't being truthful and was trying to make the money. He was going to go it alone. He could get the ship to harbor, $3 million at stake. He didn't. The ship didn't. And here's the thing about this ship, 750 people on it. The ship was packed and loaded, as all ships generally are, from bottom to top. In the hull of the ship were the Pakistanis, the lowest ranking among the social classes on the board. In the mid-level, a level still with no windows, with gates preventing access to the top floors and with no direct access to sea or air, were women and children. And on the top level were Egyptians with the means to pay a premium for deck stowage on top of the ship. That premium was as little as $50. That premium became the difference between life and death for those tired and poor and huddled masses yearning to breathe free below deck. Of the 150 souls that were saved, guess which deck they came from? The women and children all perished. The Pakistanis too. And let me say, just for the record here, as we think about social classes among social classes, every single soul on that ship was yearning to breathe free. Every single soul on that ship was at risk. Maybe some had saved a little bit longer or had a relative who had already made it across and wired the money. Maybe they were able to get to the deck, but it still wasn't what any of us would consider even economy class in the back of the airplane. So starved for air were they, so yearning to be free that they gave their entire life savings to someone operating illegally to get them across the sea. This happened on June 14th. 4 days later, after the Adriana capsized and sank, the Titan submersible, first question of the quiz, went missing. This was a pleasure craft, an adventure-seeking vessel, owned by a for-profit company with little government or international oversight. And aboard that ship, aboard that vessel, were 5 billionaires and a game controller that operated it, crammed into a tiny space with one window going to visit another ship that has captivated our American attention ever since 1917. I dare say that most of us, and certainly most of our Americans, and by the quick show of hands here, all thanks to our for-profit and increasingly deregulated news services, I dare say that most of us know more about those 5 individuals than the 600 who died 4 days earlier. Every human life is precious. The individuals aboard the Titan should not have died any more than the individuals aboard the Adriana, but in this case, social position matters. 5 people, each who paid more than $500,000 for the bragging rights to visit the ocean floor and then to return to the ocean surface and tell people about it, is different than 750 people paying their life savings to cram onto a vessel not fit for open seas and literally putting their lives into the hands of a smuggler to taste freedom. It's different. But they weren't actually going to get to taste freedom themselves. They'd given their life savings to get to a country to be the undocumented housekeepers who cleaned up after other people had a party celebrating freedom. They'd given their life savings to be the busboys, not even the waiters in the restaurant that served freedom, but that they would never eat. They were the lucky ones who could get those jobs. The unlucky ones who couldn't learn the language or get a job, who wound up living without a home or an income or the rest of their family, they still had paid over $4,000. In the week of these 2 maritime losses, every news channel and paper that I looked at that week was carrying hourly updates on the Titan. Our president commented on it and held a news conference. And somewhere deep in the international section of the papers, if you really looked, and only in past tense terms, was the news of the Adriana and her 750 souls. Now granted, Italy and Greece do not have a Statue of Liberty at the entrance to their largest ports, reminding them of humanity's call to save humanity. Anyone here want to commission a statue or two? We could send some replicas out. But then again, what good does that statue do us? Maybe Greece and Italy would have acted differently if they had a statue standing at their harbors. But do we? Scripture tells us this morning, Michael read for us, that whoever welcomes any of us welcomes God. And governors of some states are welcoming new people to our shores by putting them on planes and sending them to other states. And of this, I will say I am very proud that New York is still known as a city of immigrants, and that our reputation has yet again become our problem. I am a rebel and will always be, and love that we get to cause trouble this way. But it's still a problem. This past week, city reports indicate that we now have more individuals experiencing homelessness and sleeping on our city's streets than ever before. Over 100,000 individuals now call New York City home and have no place to unpack their suitcase. And like me, I imagine most of you don't need a city report to tell us that homelessness is an increasing problem. Our city knows this. We live and breathe it. We walk past it. Sometimes we stop, sometimes we don't. We encounter it. And our city is beginning to respond. And my hope is that all of us may be part of the solution, for it will indeed take all of us to be part of the solution that welcomes these women who are tired, and these men that came huddled together, and these children who are poor and yet yearn to breathe free. The city is opening new shelters and taking applications from houses of worship and faith communities to be emergency respite centers. 2 buildings here on the Upper West Side that many of you know that were once SROs and that for many years have been dorms are now housing over 700 individuals. This is progress. And like so many churches, we here at West End, we too have submitted our interest in having a conversation with the city about what it would take for us to provide shelter and beds in our building. The process is long and there are no foregone conclusions, but I'm interested. And the task force looking at how to revitalize our building and to support our ministry, they're interested, and your consistory is interested. And I say that many, if not all of us, are interested. I don't have any more information. Don't ask me more progress. I told you everything I know at this point. But stay tuned. Whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of another righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. Matthew, a Jew, writing to other Jews in his hometown about a teacher who taught him how to breathe free. That's ancient scripture that we now call gospel. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. That's more contemporary scripture written by another Jewish prophet, whose words are not in a book, but they are inscribed at the very feet of one of the great symbols of our nation. On this weekend, when we remember the independence we have won, we remember also our dependence on V1, the one who promises release to the captives and freedom to those enslaved, and equity among the races and the genders, all and each of them. The one whom we, the few, the proud, semper fidelis, call God. We remember the souls lost at sea. We remember those who yearn to breathe free. We welcome new friends to our city and to our country every hour of every day. And we have choices. And on this day, with those words from Holy Sonnet from 1883, from Emma Lazarus' poem in our minds, We remember where the shackles are. They are under liberty's feet. We can sing glory, glory, and alleluia. And we remember those words of Lazarus who says, I lift my lamp beside the golden door. The golden door, much like the crystal tides forever that flow by the throne of God, behind that golden door is freedom itself. A land for the free, enough for all and scarcity for none, of life, of liberty, and of the gospel's promise of freedom to all.